mess with me, please. There we go. We're here. We're live. Yay! I'm gonna start a watch party. Oh, I don't think I have to.
Hello.
All right. I'm just gonna check this. So, hello, everybody. As you guys come in, say hey. Here we are. Yay! I see it. I'm gonna start a watch party. All right. So as you guys come in, say hey. Let us know where you're coming from. I know we're about 5 minutes late. That's all right. That's my fault.
Fashionably late.
Yeah, we're fashionably late, right? Who was it that says
on time?
Queens are never late. Everybody else is just early.
When I lived in
Queen
they
code.
always said there's still time to be late.
Yeah,
Of course. There's always time to be
Always
late.
time to
Always. I will be late to my funeral. So I'm just putting that out there. So if anyone wants to RSVP, you should probably do it now.
I
I'll
don't
be
want a funeral, girl. I don't want a funeral. Just keep that in mind.
a party. I want a party.
A party.
I always
A
said that.
party.
I always saw something that said that I hope that I get to the end of my life and I slide into my grave completely wore out, like something. And so I hope that's me. That's me. You know, just sliding in like, what's up, y'all? Just made it. You know. All right. So as you guys come in, say hey. I'm really excited about this. So just for anybody who's out there, we may go over a little bit because I think this is going to be a really good conversation. And this is something that it took me 7 years to figure out that this is like what I do. So that's also pretty exciting. So as you guys come in, say hey. Let us know where you guys are coming from, Facebook, YouTube. Where are you right now in the world? And this is a question that I love to ask, but how are you doing? I think it's really important that as we go along, we check in on each other. So I just love to know. Oh, hello, Raymond. He doesn't know who this is. What it's referring to. Well, sir, if you want to stay and watch,
He's gonna find out.
Right. So, hey, Steph. Oh,
Hey,
thank you. Steph did a reading, a psychic channeling for me a while back, and she told me that what I was going to do as a coach started with an S. And she said spirituality, empowerment, and I'm like, I don't know about that. And sure enough, now it's sovereignty and shadow work. So here we are, right? Here we are. Right, so many S's. All right, so I'm going to drop in my intro as you guys come in and say, hey, let's comment. Please feel free to be a part of this conversation, especially if you don't know what this is and what this is about. Please ask lots of questions. This is a really important topic, and I hope that at one point we'll get to dive into what's going on in the world right now and how that relates to the shadow work that we're not doing as human beings. So, and if you feel called to, please share this so I can continue getting more eyes on these conversations and these panels. So anyways, I'm going to drop into my intro and we're going to get started. So hello and welcome to the Tough Woman Roundtable, you guys. Yay! Oh my God. This is the space where all people will connect and create epic conversation. At Tough Woman, I believe that all people have the power within themselves to live life authentically, free from fear, confident in who they are, empowered to go out and create a life that sets their soul on fire. I also believe that by one person showing up in their truth, we give other people permission to step into their own truth, thus giving us the opportunity to rise together. And it is through this joined rising that we move ourselves and humanity forward to a more beautiful way of living, you guys. So please pull up a seat and tune in with us as we create epic conversations and remind everyone how truly powerful we all are within. What? Oh my gosh, it just makes me so happy. I love it too. Here says, hello. Hello. Hey, Kira. Before we go into this, what's funny is every intro that I've ever written that I end up keeping for these shows, I hate it when I first write it. I'll read it like 5 times and go, I don't like this. But I'm going to use it and I'm going to like it. And so, all right, you guys. So what I'm going to let you guys do, introduce yourselves real quick. Who are you and what is it that you do? And then we're going to dive right into the topic first and foremost, which is the power of unresolved trauma and how it can manifest in our life. And you can take that from a purely personal point of view if you want to use that, or just another way. So I'm going to drop in with Karen first, and then we'll do Sarah and Nikki. But Karen, if you want to tell everybody a little about who you are and what it is that you do.
Sure. Well, I'm Karen Lowe. I am the owner, operator, coach, everything there is to be of Karen Lowe Inspirations. I'm an intuitive coach and card reader. I like to say card because I find if I put tarot in front of it, people assume that I only use tarot cards, but I use both tarot and oracle. If you see little ears going by, my cat is here. She loves being in the room with me. So what I do is I give people what they need when they need it. So whatever it is that you're working through, that is what I'm here to help you with. And sometimes we find out that what you thought you wanted to work on is not actually what you need to work on. So it's super fun to talk to people and find out what it is they need to help them through. I help break limits. I help with self-care, self-discovery, meditation, spirituality, all kinds of topics that you can think of. And I actually do monthly pick-a-pile readings, which is really, really fun for me. I enjoy doing them so much. So what that is I create a pile of different oracle and tarot cards, and I allow you to work with your own intuition to choose a pile and then see what the message is. And I put those up on YouTube every month. If you haven't seen July's yet, it is chakra related. So it will be pretty interesting if you want to go and check it out. It's on my YouTube channel under Karen Lowe Inspirations.
Awesome, man, and I love it. I've got
That's awesome.
to a couple of your readings, and they're always so in line. Actually, rest. Why aren't you resting, Ashley? It's fucking hard. Rest. All right, Sarah, tell everybody a little about who you are and what it is that you do.
Hello, everybody. I'm Sarah Goodlaxon. I currently live in Denver. I moved here in 2017. What I'm currently doing is I have a marketing and branding agency that specifically helps female and women entrepreneurs grow their business and build their brands with the specific intention of helping women gain financial freedom. I have a very, very large feminist backing for why I do what I do. I'm also a survivor of childhood sexual trauma, domestic violence. Love talking about hard topics like miscarriage, divorce, literally anything that is quite normal for women to go through in our lifetime, that, we have a culture of secrecy and silence. And a victim shaming and blaming, and I'm just not really here for that anymore. So I'm also writing a book. It's going to be called Choice, and that goes through pretty much a chronological timeline of my life. And I'm also inviting other women in to be interviewed for that book, so that our voices rise as a collective rather than just one person sharing one story. So that's who I am and kind of what I'm about.
Yay, I love it. Oh my gosh! All right, take us home.
Hey, y'all. So my name is Nikki. I am known as the Queen of the Bounce Back. I am the owner and founder of Queen of the Bounce Back. So I teach people that I work with how to bounce back from the bullshit. So basically, I have been through hell and back. I have quite a story. Definitely eventful, to say the least. Childhood and all that jazz. But even more so than that, I am a very big chronic illness advocate, especially invisible illnesses. So I am an MS warrior. I have been battling multiple sclerosis for 14 years. I have gone paralyzed 4 different times, twice from the waist down, twice from the neck down. Like I said, it's been eventful. However, what I have learned and what I love to share is how to keep bouncing back. So what I mean by that is strengthening your emotional resilience. So it's not about trying to avoid the negative, but it's about knowing that you are emotionally resilient enough and you're ready for anything. Like, y'all, it's like, what next? All right, challenge accepted. So I teach people how to bounce back from the bullshit, and there's a lot of it. So yeah, just being who I needed when I was younger, and being the change you want to see and all that good stuff. I too believe in, really starting a conversation. I often refer to myself as being a voice for the voiceless. I am the co-founder and co-owner of Spiritual Vigilante, which is a platform to do just that, to elevate the voices of people who may not feel like they have one, who don't know where to go to have one, who may not know how to access. So not only a platform, but kind of a how-to. So yeah, just kind of turning pain into power, and blessed to be here with y'all. So thank you.
I was like, hey, unmute yourself before you start talking, because I think I did that in one of the panels. I was like going hard on something, and they're like, dude, you're muted.
That's a me move.
And that segues really nicely into our first topic. So really, this is going to focus on two topics, two parts to this, which is understanding our personal responsibility. Because for any of you who did not read the real blunt this, your trauma is the only thing fucking you right now. Right? So often we go through life thinking that, oh, this person's effing me over, or life's just mowing me on over, and we negate responsibility to an external force instead of recognizing that by taking responsibility for our trauma. Because, and I want to be specific for anybody who's not out there and who's been through trauma, and I've been through it. Every woman on this show has been through it. The trauma is not your fault. Like what you went through, that's not your fault. So I want people to first understand that I'm not out here victim blaming, because again, you can't help what happens to you, but you have control on what you do afterwards, meaning you can allow the trauma to define you, or you can utilize the trauma as a motivator in your life. So we're going to be talking tonight about how unresolved trauma becomes your primary basis of being, and especially as you become an adult who's experienced childhood trauma, and why it's really important to learn to take responsibility for how you show up in that space and how you work with the trauma. And then I want to talk a little bit about shadow work, which all of us have experience in this area, but it's something that's just not talked about a lot, especially in the spiritual community, which up until quite recently, I didn't realize that until I started doing it. We are really afraid to talk about what shadow work consists of. So we're going to just dive into that, especially for anybody who's really new to it. And we're going to talk about why it's so important in regards to moving away from the trauma that you've been through. So, Karen, I'm going to let you kick this off. I would love for you to discuss the importance, or my real first question to all you ladies is, why is it important to take responsibility for healing our trauma? I will let you go first, Karen.
Beautiful. Well, first off, I want to say that I really did love your introduction for this panel. Like, that was insanely good, and it fits perfectly with everything that you've been working towards. It's amazing. And I say that because, Ashley, you have gotten to this point because you do shadow work, because you work on exactly what we're talking about here right now. So Ashley is a key example of why it's important to do shadow work. Pretty much everybody on this panel is a key example of why to do shadow work. Sarah had mentioned that she loves talking about miscarriages. Well, that is one of the experiences that I have had, that I've had to work through. And I went through 3 years of depression after that happened to me. A lot of people that have had miscarriages, I'm sorry. A lot of people that have had miscarriages talk about it, and you hear them say like, oh, I was 5 weeks pregnant, but it was still my child, and all these things. And I'm not negating that, at a lesser weekly period, that it's less impactful. It is crazy impactful no matter when you lose your child. However, I lost my child at 34 weeks pregnant. So I lost her in January and I was due March 1st. So you can only imagine how big of a connection was there with that child, and then having to be induced into labor and have my water broken and going through that birth process. Like, this is why a lot of people don't like talking about it, because that is so uncomfortable for so many people. But just to throw it out there, one thing the best thing you can do for people in this instance, if someone starts talking about these topics and you just don't know what to say, don't say anything, because they don't need you to say anything. They just need someone to listen, right? And that is one way that we can process through the dark times, the bad things that happen to us. But that's just a piece of it. We still also have to do inner work towards everything. There's a huge, huge forgiveness aspect when it comes to shadow work and dealing with trauma and working your way through it. And when I say forgiveness, a lot of people will automatically jump to, well, I've been through trauma and I forgave the person who did it to me. Why can't I move on? Why is it still affecting me? And I like to tell those people the reason it's still affecting you is because you haven't done the second step of forgiveness. So the first step of forgiveness, in my opinion, is forgiving the other person. You don't have to go tell them that you forgive them. You just have to forgive them and let go of, what they did to you, because that will bring back your own power to yourself. Because the more you hold that anger and resentment towards them and hold on to that trauma, the more power, your own personal power, you're giving away. But the second part of forgiveness, and this is one that I struggled with when I had my miscarriage, is forgiveness of self. Forgiving my body for not doing, basically as a woman, like one of the main things that we are supposed to do, right? Which is carry a child to term and give birth, right? It's like a big thing. It's a big piece of a woman's identity. So when your body, rejects that and you have a miscarriage, it is devastating. And I mean, it was super devastating for me because I was that person that I had my child's name. If it was going to be a girl, I had her name picked out since I was like 8 years old. So I was connected as soon as I found out. And then as soon as we found out it was a girl, the name was there, everything was in place. And then 34 weeks in, you lose that child, and it's just devastating. And I went through depression for 3 years. I didn't have the outward, couldn't get out of bed type of depression. The type of depression I had was I was dying on the inside, but making sure that everybody else thought that I was okay, because I didn't want to make them uncomfortable. I didn't want them to know I was hurting. I didn't want them to feel sorry for me. All of these things that were coming up, and all that did was not allow me to heal at all. So even though I thought I'm still moving forward, I'm not laying in bed every day, I'm going to work, I'm okay, I'm making it through, I really wasn't. I was just letting that trauma stew within. And it eventually blew up, and it affected my relationship with my husband, it affected myself, it affected my relationship with friends and family, all of these things. So when you hold on to trauma, it doesn't hurt just you. It hurts those around you as well. It can manifest physically in a deep depression. I thankfully did not get to that point, but it can manifest in that. It can manifest in anxiety, panic attacks, and many other forms. And you just don't even know it sometimes. Sometimes it'll manifest and you won't even connect the two until you start doing the work and you start going through the trauma and dealing with it and moving through it. I don't ever like saying moving on or moving forward or whatever, because that makes it seem like you forget completely that it happened. But what you do for me in moving forward is you work through it, you let go of the pain, and you use that to create more light in the world, to let people know that they're not alone, that there are others out there with similar experiences, and that you have help to get through these things if you need it. So, long-winded, that's my take on everything and some examples for you.
Oh no, I love that. Sorry, my daughter's behind. She's listening to something. And honestly, I'll say this. I'm really grateful for all of you guys being able to come on here and talk about these things, because that's not easy. thing, and you know, it's funny you talk about miscarriage. I think it's more important to talk about these too, because people who have not gone through it also need to understand what it's like to, like, how do we actually hold space for people. So I remember I had this woman come on and do her story, and she talks to people's spirit babies and helps people get pregnant after miscarriages and things like that. And she talked about miscarriage, and it's a very personal story, much like yours, Karen. And I remember sitting there, and I didn't really know what to say, because I thank God have never had to experience that, but I've talked to a lot of people, and she said, "Listen, um, you know," and I said, "Well, what can people do to help in that situation?" She said, "Just listen to these people." She said, "People, honestly, who have had miscarriage want to talk about it. They don't want you to not talk to them, because then it seems like it never happened and the baby never existed." And so I think just as much as it's important to continue talking about the subject, it's also important to talk about it like, listen, when you're around someone who's been through this trauma, this is how you can help show up as support for them. But I also love that you talked about how when we negate this, we can think we're going along and we're just fine, and then all of a sudden, boom, it explodes. And that, that was a big reason why I want to do the show, because you know, I didn't know what this panel was going to be for a while. I didn't realize that how many guests were, you know. And a week ago, I had my own blow up, and it was stemming from trauma from my custody battle with my daughter's father that happened when she was 6 and she's 14 now. And I thought I had moved past it, and I had not. And it just blew up. It had slowed me down in my business. I was suffering a lot of physical ailments from it. And as soon as I was able to let that come and feel it and literally like break down into an emotional, like, I don't even know what you can call it, but it moved out, and I was able to move forward. And like you say, you don't ever really like forget it, but you move forward from it in a way that you learn the lesson and you keep moving forward. So I'm going to go with Nikki. If you want to, same question for you is like, why is it so important to understand our unresolved trauma in regards to how it operates in our life?
So for me personally, this is a very, I'm big on divine timing. And this is actually the first live. I usually go live every single night. And this is my first live back since Thursday, where I announced that I was forcing myself to do my shadow work because I got hit with some less than pleasant news about a week ago. And good old me was like, "Oh no, I do shadow work for a living. This is what I do." So I'm like, you know what? I don't have space for this. I don't care. I was in complete denial. And a couple days were going, and I literally was like, "No, you need to stop your shit. You know what you need to do. Stop distracting yourself. Do the work. Feel your feelings. Go through them so you can get through them." And so this is very interesting that this is the first live that I'm doing back from actually practicing what I preach and doing the legitimate shadow work. So why do I think it's important? Because genuinely, the trauma is stored in your body, whether you realize it or not. We are constantly absorbing things, and trauma especially, it leaves a mark on the body. It can manifest physically, it can manifest mentally, emotionally, until you actually acknowledge the fracture or the part that's misconnected. There is no way to mend and heal. So often we look at our shadow work, which is really just where our triggers lie, where we're a little unbalanced, where we're not aligned and connected as healthily as usual. So until we really give it the awareness it needs, we can't take the next step to address and mend. It's all about reconciliation. It's all about realizing that it is a part of you, and that's okay, because you can't have the light without the dark. And that's where the shadow work comes in. It is through that darkness that you shine even brighter, because without addressing that darkness, it's constantly going to dim your light, constantly. So do that, do the work. And I understand it is uncomfortable, and it is. So don't let us, don't let us fool you. It is going to be uncomfortable. It is not going to be easy. I personally cry my face off. I sob, ugly cry, those things. It's cute. Y'all, it has to happen, because you gotta go through something to get through something. And yes, it sucks. It really, truly does. And nobody wants to be like, yeah, I'm so excited to be sad all this time. But truly understand, and I cannot stress this enough, it is for the greater good. Bypass that instant gratification. Give yourself a day, give yourself a week to relieve yourself of it for a month, a year. I promise you, you will not go wrong. I assure you, it is super necessary. So really, in order to heal, you have to feel. The greater the feeling, the greater the healing. I know it sounds kind of crazy, but it's the truth. I assure y'all. I wouldn't steer y'all wrong. So it's important. You have to acknowledge it in order to actually do something about it. So that's my take on trauma.
I love that. And Raymond, I'm not, I will take it as this. Perhaps there's some things that you need to deal with, is what I'll say, because that's really what this is about, is understanding our own personal responsibility and the things that we're not dealing with it. And in the bluntest way you can say is, we go through life saying, why is all this stuff happening to me? Not realizing that it's happening for you to grab your attention, because you have things going on inside that you are not paying attention to. So when you
learn the lesson,
yes. When you constantly find yourself running into the same cycle over and over again, this is the universe going like, hey, knock, knock, knock. You need to pay attention to what's going on here. For a lot of women out there, I'll say this, we often end up in these cycles of I had a roommate who was like this: all men are shit. All men are shit. And then she goes, I can't understand why I keep dating shitty men. Well, so that in and of itself is a trauma. We start creating and manifesting these things into our life that are based upon our perception of the world, based on whether or not we have healed or not healed from traumas that we have gone through in life. So Sarah, I'm going to let you take it away and explain what your thoughts are on the importance of self-responsibility in regards to healing our trauma. And I was going to say one more thing in there. One of my favorite things, and Nikki, I think you mirrored this, was there is a, it was a poison one you mirrored, but there's another one that says, when you refuse to heal the wound, you bleed on people who didn't even cut you. So, like what Karen says, when we refuse to heal, we are now bleeding on the people who did nothing to us.
Hurt people.
Mm-hmm. So, Sarah, I would love your thoughts.
Okay, I'll try and keep it short. I have so many thoughts. I'm taking notes while you guys are talking. So again, keep in mind, a lot of what I talk about has to do with my own personal experience and everything that I mentioned. So not just one particular traumatic event. It is layers and layers of trauma. It's like peeling back an onion. And it's very intriguing. It's interesting for me to healthily disassociate. I encourage you guys to look into that. Anybody listening, healthy dissociation. And just kind of view what's happening with me and internally happening in me, so that I can stop the cycle of trauma, kind of just like Ashley just mentioned. I also have, cycles of choosing the wrong men, choosing the wrong people. However, anybody listening, I want to make sure that we don't take that as an internal knock on any part of us. Because it's a subconscious thing that we do, because we're trying to recreate those trauma bonds. We're trying to recreate something that happened, whether or not that makes us feel comfortable, because we understand the abuse and there is bit of a, I'm not trying to say twisted, but there is a bit of comfort in knowing what's about to happen when we choose these kind of men. And also, we're also trying to like recreate what's happening because we do want a different outcome. So I want to make sure that any person listening, and that's male or female, if we do have those tendencies, to give yourself a little bit of grace, because it's not like you're, you know, doing it to yourself on purpose. It's just a subconscious thing that it's just telling us we need to work on our trauma. So for me, why is it important to take responsibility? And quite frankly, it's not for me, it's for every human. If we don't take responsibility for the trauma, whether or not it's not our fault, right? But what we can control is how we, and I know, Karen, you said you don't like the vernacular move forward, but for me, that's very important to say. So I can move forward with my life. So I'm not stuck in this dark place, which I have been stuck for a long time. So also keep in mind that a lot of different trauma survivors have different vernacular. They have different language. Some might be triggering for, you know, one person, where another might find a lot of empowerment in naming that trauma or naming the action of what they really want to do, you know, moving forward. So just also want to put that out there really quickly. So when we address our trauma, for me, why it's so important is not only does it help ourselves, and yes, of course, helping me is always, you know, number one, always very important. But in order to do that work, in order to step into that light moving forward, if we're not able to help ourselves, how can we help anybody else? Also, I want to mention that forgiveness is definitely different for everyone. And so if we're talking about our bodies, right, as maybe for like miscarriage, or if we have gone through sexual trauma, forgiving our bodies, absolutely. And for me, it is not a requirement to forgive specifically the person who has perpetrated the abuse on me, because sometimes things are unforgivable. And so for me to say, I forgive this person in particular, for me, that language means like, it's okay what you did to me. And so my language means that I hold you accountable. Therefore, I don't give you my absolute forgiveness. So that's important for me to also say, just to give anybody listening the grace and the space to heal however you need to heal. Every journey is completely different. It's completely separate. It's completely personal. It would be like your spirituality with your higher power. It's absolutely individual. So just give yourself grace, give yourself space. Additionally, in order to heal, and it is so important to heal so we can help others. So I want to give a very specific example of something that happened today. So I receive a lot of flack, a lot of pushback from my family, from people that are close to me, because I share so much, because I am so vulnerable, I am so open, and I know it's important for us to be this way, especially with each other, because it gives permission for you, Nikki, for you, Karen, for you, Ashley, to just be who you are, and to say like, look, I feel broken, I feel this way, and also like I need help. So I have a girlfriend who is on Team USA. She's a world level grappler, world level wrestler, and she's dedicating her life to helping women rise in wrestling. So she's a wrestling coach for middle school, high school, and collegiate level wrestlers and grapplers. And she's facing something right now where trying to give privacy here. A situation where one of her girls is being abused. But if she nor I, right, she comes to me because we are very close and we have experienced a lot of the same things and we have always been there for each other. But how would we be able to help this future generation stand strong and stand firm, no matter who the person is, whether it's familial, right? It's somebody in our family maybe perpetrating the abuse on us, which comes with so many more strings attached, or it's somebody outside of our family. like, how could we ever help those girls stand tall and stand strong if we haven't done that work ourselves? If we haven't stood strong inside ourselves and said, like, I'm here for myself, and therefore I can now be here for you. So for me, I obviously come first. My healing comes first. My mental health comes first. But my main purpose, my main way of being is so I can help others. So it's so important for all of us to take responsibility, regardless if we want to help others or not, because if we don't, we continue to harm. And we continue the cycles of generational trauma. We continue silence. We continue hurting others, whether or not we mean to or not. So all of that is so important so that we can create spaces and compassion and help other survivors. And the last thing I'll say with this real quick, because I think Karen did mention it, or I forget who, but making other people comfortable. And I literally was just talking about this today. Yes, Karen, making other people feel comfortable. It's something that we're conditioned to do, especially as women. We're conditioned to serve. We're conditioned to mother. We're conditioned, to be less than. But when you think about it, when you put the shoe on the other foot, we would never ask somebody else to do that. We would never say, like, you need to be less than so I feel comfortable. We would bend over backwards to make sure that we're allowing those spaces for people to be who they are. So, like, what a selfish thing for anybody to ask of another human, to be less than, right? So that they can be comfortable. So I want to make sure that anybody listening just starts the journey to being very strong and powerful in their own being and their own voice and in their own truth. And anybody that's worth being in your life, they will never ask you to be less than. So I just wanted to end by saying that.
Amen. And I'm doing a watch party too, so I'm gonna pull up some comments. So Gearston, I'm so happy to see you here. She had a hell of a story. I don't got to see that. Hers was crazy. Cycles of unresolved lineageal programming, and that's the one other thing that I feel like when we get to the sovereignty one, that's something that's really important. So the other reason it's really important to take responsibility for your trauma is understanding what your trauma is versus what is familial trauma that you are continuing to carry. So for anybody who's wondering what I'm talking about, have you ever heard it said, well, this is the way it's always been?
That's my trigger.
That doesn't mean...
That's my trigger. Literally, that's my trigger. Sorry.
Yeah.
That's my shadow work.
Yeah, the way your parents parented does not mean that that's the way you need to parent, because that doesn't mean it's just the way it's always been, because nobody's ever stopped and questioned, is this the way it actually should be? So, and that's why a lot of parents nowadays, especially parents like myself, are parenting way differently. And it's considered controversial because we are now not only dealing with our own trauma so that our children, like, I deal with my own trauma so my daughter doesn't take it, but I'm allowing her to develop her own personality outside of who I am, and not placing boundaries on her, which that in and of itself, for anybody who is out there as a parent, if you are forcing your beliefs onto your child, if you're stating that because I'm a Republican, my child has to be a Republican, that is a trauma in and of itself. And I don't think anybody realizes that either. I didn't. But I remember growing up and being raised in Catholicism, and I was so traumatized, and I'm not trying to bash a religion here, but I was so traumatized by that experience as a whole, and I didn't realize how traumatizing it was to me till I got older and I started thinking about going back into organized religion. And I had such a deep block against organized religion that it really took me a very long time to even think about entering into another church. So when we talk about familial trauma, that's like understanding that some of the trauma that you're carrying is not trauma that's yours to carry. Maybe it's just trauma from your mother who might have taken it from her mother, and so on and so forth. So that's another reason it's really important, because then you have to ask yourself, am I operating from my own trauma, or am I operating from trauma that was given to me? So cases, unresolved issues get carried into our next decisions. This can affect our life. Amen to that. Mm-hmm. That's truth. And I actually had a note that says unresolved trauma becomes your primary thoughts, beliefs, and operating system. So our unresolved trauma is what, like you said, Nikki, that's a trigger. We might have had a very seriously bad abusive relationship, and maybe, I think this is an example, maybe that person drove a yellow Mustang. So now we've internalized that. So every time we see a yellow Mustang that looks like that, they drive by, we all of a sudden are replicating the same physical response we had from when we were in the relationship, even if it's like 10, 15 years down the road. But if we haven't acknowledged what the abuse did to us, then we still, like you said, Nikki, we continue to internalize it and manifest in us and outside of us as well. So Kirsten said, I believe that too, you can be at peace without providing forgiveness. That's true. And I think that both Karen and Sarah, I want to commend you guys for bringing up the aspect of forgiveness, because I think people get it twisted in thinking that when we offer forgiveness to somebody, it's really for that person, and it's not. The power comes in being able to take back our power by giving somebody forgiveness. And you know, this was something I had to say, and Sarah, I think this mirrors a little bit. I've had to tell people that sometimes forgiveness is, you know, being firm in the boundary that those people don't have to be in life anymore. There are some people that I will never talk to ever again. And the person who said that, she's like, well, don't I have to be nice? No, you don't. I can hate that. That's
there is no should. There is no should. Let's just put that before everything.
You don't have to, and this is why I think another reason shadow work is really important. And we're going to get into this belief that you have to be the good girl, like you guys said, what we've been conditioned to believe is you have to be nice. You have to make it. That's bullshit. That's so much bullshit. I can't stand it. You know what? I tell clients, like, if your boundary is, listen, I don't ever want to talk to this person ever again. That's your boundary. That's okay. You can have that. That's not any less love and light. That means you have boundaries and respect for yourself, and that's all that matters. So, and then I got a couple other people that are just saying, hey, what's up, everybody? So anyways, do any of you guys have any last thoughts before we go to the next subject, which is on shadow work and why that's important in regards to your healing your
literally
trauma?
all of us.
Huh?
Just pick a cycle. I think everybody has something to say.
Okay, so everybody's got something to finish off here? All right, so we'll start with Nikki first, Karen, and then actually, no, I don't know who we started with. So, okay, let's start with Nikki, Karen, and then Karen. Okay, Nikki, Sarah, and then Karen. That way, I want to make sure everybody gets equal amount of time.
So. Just one thing I'd like to, a couple of things to keep in mind. The mind cannot know actual reality. The mind only knows your interpretation of reality. Let me say that one more time. And this is from the NLP, neuroplasticity, psychology. This is actual real deal science, okay? The way the wired brain works. So your brain it's not wired to know what real actuality, what real reality is. It is only designed to know your perception of what you believe reality is. So it is not doing anything but trying to keep you safe, your brain. This is how we have control. This is how we kind of, so that I think is important to remember, is that everything is perception. So perspective, you know, if y'all have at all followed me, I'm a big advocate of perspective. It really changes, it changes the game. But I another thing I just wanted to mention as well is there are, for me, I like to look at it as like 3 stages almost. And stage 1 is awareness. Stage 2 is the forgiveness. And stage 3 is the integration. So not only, so the awareness in, you know, not avoiding, feeling it, sitting with your feelings, we discussed that. Forgiveness on both ends. Forgiveness, whether or not you know, whether you feel comfortable with the other person, or at the very least, there's a level of forgiveness that you alleviate from yourself. And I think actually Ashley and I spoke about this today, but you know, there is a Buddhist quote that talks about anger and forgiveness. And basically, you harboring anger and resentment is like drinking poison and expecting the other person to die. So you don't forgive for them. Nah, that's not for you. You forgive for you because you don't want the burden of the resentment, the anger. Totally valid. totally understandable and probably still going to be there because it's real. But you do have control over how it then affects your thoughts, your words, your behaviors, your actions. That's where we gain our control. And like everyone has said, that's where we gain our power back. It's because our power was given away. The way we take our power back is to say, okay, now this is what I have control over. This is what I'm going to control, and not veering from that. So forgiveness, again, does not have to necessarily mean to the person. There are plenty of people who have my love and not my forgiveness. However, on my end, I am no longer harboring those feelings. So I would consider forgiveness, but call it what you want. They don't affect me, but it's still a big to what they did. So it's like everything's balanced, and there is no one size fits all. Do what, there's no right or wrong. Go.
Oh, she went out. Uh-oh. I don't know where she went. All right.
She'll be back. Okay, so what I want to mention, I love what Nikki just said about boundaries and also not having to be nice. Like, that's a lie that we're told. And I have always been like the aggressive woman. I've always been brash. I've always been a bitch. Like but that's just who I am. Like, I'm a very intense person. I'm Enneagram 8. Like I am an intense person. I was an MMA fighter, like, for God's sakes, like, it has served me very well in my survival. And so there's just a lot of like cultural lies that we're told, but specifically, oh, hello, my dog's licking my arm. So sweet. Specifically, I wanted to talk about, I'm a big proponent of sharing personal stories just because vulnerability is one of my main points. Like, if I can't be vulnerable, how can I expect anybody else to be vulnerable with me? So in healing, and also why it's so important. So I want to give you examples of my birth mother and then my mother. And where they kind of are at in their healing, and also how that has affected me as their daughter. So we'll start with my birth mother. So again, her story is not completely mine to tell. However, parts of it obviously are, because I am her daughter. So I am the product of rape. And so it's one thing to have that knowledge, right? It doesn't affect me. It just is like, it's knowledge of how I came into the world. And that's pretty much it for me. However, she is so unhealed, and I want to preface everything I'm saying by saying there can be so much trauma in your life that maybe there is only so much healing that can happen in your lifetime. And I give absolute grace and space for that. So I want to say I am absolutely not judging, and I hold an intense amount of love for my birth mother and my mother. So I just want to preface it by saying that. However, she is very unhealed. And so the way that came out to me, and this is the last time I ever saw her because I put those boundaries in place because it was so harmful, is that she was standing in my kitchen in front of my husband or my partner, and said, "You are a rape baby," to me, to my face. But it wasn't informational. It was an accusation. And so no person, no human can like prepare themselves to like hear that or like receive that, And so like that came out as a physical manifestation of the trauma that she just laid on me because she's unhealed. And I recognize that and I realize that. However, I do not accept that to continue in my life, nor would I ever put that on my own children. And so I am healed enough and strong enough that I can put those boundaries in place. And so in her eyes, from her perspective, I'm a bitch for doing that. Like, I'm a bad person, I'm whatever, and that's fine. Like, I absolutely do not care that that's how my birth mother feels about me. So in saying like, why is it important to heal your trauma? Like, we don't want to harm others in our life, especially not to those degrees or in any varying degree. So now using my mother, so the woman who adopted me, as an example. So she has also been through a massive amount of trauma in her life. However, through me being vulnerable and through me being open, like we are healing as a family. And so I choose to put my energy into her. I choose to love her in all of varying degrees of her healing and not being healed and who she is. And in her own right, the harm she also has done to me subconsciously, not understanding that it was part of her conditioning, right? So, but through that and through us healing, like we can also help heal our family members. But also I want to also preface that or add to that by saying, as a child, it's not our job to heal our parents. And so that's just something that I choose to do because I love them so much. And I'm so grateful that they did adopt me. And they really gave me a wonderful, wonderful life. But as a woman that's healing and working through generational trauma, shadow work, internal work, and obviously what anybody else wants to call it, like language can always be different. But by doing those small ripples in ourselves, that extends out to everybody that we know, whether it's our inner circle or our outer circle or people we don't know, right? Like people come and tell me their stories all the time on Instagram because they don't have anybody else to talk to. So like, again, with everyone in our life, like healing ourselves is so important because we don't know who we can impact. And so that's just like life work and it never ends. It's not something that's like, oh, well, I've done a great job and now I'm done, because like Ashley said, years later, like we don't, like it can come back up, and when it does, because it probably will, like, it's okay. Like, it's okay that it's coming back, even though it's like, fuck, why is it happening again? Sometimes like, but it's all okay. And so when we are healed and we do create those connections, like kind of like us ladies were like so connected, right? Like I didn't know Nikki until Ashley kind of brought us together. I didn't know who Karen is, but girl, like we're going to be friends now. Like we are bonded now, like, and there is such a strong connection and bond of women who have gone through such trauma because nobody else understands it. Nobody else understands it like we do. And really nobody else is going to be able to help each other, like help us like we can. And like Ashley said, like there is so much power in that. And that's what makes, trigger word, the patriarchy, so scared of us because we are incredibly powerful fucking goddesses. And when we get together, ooh, honey, like you better watch out. So that's what I have to say.
And before you come in, I just want to say, like, this gentleman is watching all the way from Kenya.
Yes, he is. Hey, Derek.
Oh, Derek. I love seeing men come on here. Like, it really makes me excited. Like, I want to mess up the name on this one day so it doesn't say Tough Woman Roundtable, so that I'll see if more men will come on. I'll be like, what is this? They're on there? There's a bunch of women on there. Let me watch that. All right. So, Karen, I would love your final thoughts. And then if everybody's okay, because we are approaching 8:30, but if everyone's okay to stay a little bit over, I would like to discuss shadow work for a little bit. So if you ladies are good, awesome. Yeah. All right. So, Karen, if you want to give us your final thoughts on responsibility in regards to unresolved trauma in our life.
Mine are going to be like short notes because they're just like little comments on little things that everybody else has said. So Sarah had mentioned about moving forward. That is a phrase that I adopt and love so much. Moving on is the phrase that does not sit well with me because moving on to me sounds like you're forgetting about it. Like you literally are putting it down and going, I will never ever think of this again. And that's not how it works. Like you have to use like the reason we work through that pain and that trauma a lot of times, one is to heal, but secondly, if we are called to do it, is to inspire others and let others know this is not something that is solely a one person thing. There are others out there in the world that have gone through similar situations, and we are here to help you. Another thing I want to mention is that the mind wants to put things in a box. So one thing that I think Ashley was talking about was a good reason not to hold on to trauma is because when you hold on to trauma, when your mind sees other things, it'll always try to associate it and fit it into these little spaces in your mind. That's what your mind does. It creates these definitions and these areas for specific stuff. And even if something doesn't fit exactly into a specific space, it will fit it into the closest space, because it has to organize, like your mind is like a filing system, right? So it has to organize everything and have everything in its place. That's what it does. That's why when we talk about the ego, we talk about how it will say something bad about a situation and then 5 seconds later can say something good about a situation because something shifted that now has changed how the ego is seeing and how the mind is seeing and perceiving the situation. So it can say good and it can say bad. It doesn't care as long as you stay in that comfort zone, as long as you stay safe and secure as to what the ego thinks is safe and secure. It doesn't care what it says. As long as it keeps you in that box, that's where it wants you. I like that Ashley brought up about the parenting, the familial trauma, and how like generations pass. Like you do something just because that's the way it's always been. My favorite example of that is going to church. Grow up in a Christian family like I did. You go to church every Sunday. You go to Sunday school. You get baptized. You do youth group. Like you do all these things because that's how it is. That's how it's always been. And so you do it. And it wasn't until I hit probably about 20 when I actually got out of my house and I was going to university and I was in the city and I was, being exposed to all these different people, and some of them were pagans, that I was like, what? There's different stuff out there. Like, what is going on, right? Because I didn't know. Christianity is what it was because that's what my mom did. That's what, the last generation did. So that's my favorite example of that. But one thing I just want to point out with the word controversial is that what we seem to forget with that word is that the things that are normal today used to be controversial when they first came out, right? Like everything that's around today that is normal wasn't always normal, right? Because we would never have progression, we would never have evolution, we would never.
They always get stuck when they're going, man. Epic.
Never fails.
Karen, are you there? While she's mid awesome like dialogue here.
I know. I was like so ready for her to finish that. Like I was like, yes.
All right, so I'm just gonna Kirsten said thank you for joining, Gabrielle. I'm so happy to have you here, Gabrielle. Oh, okay, Karen, I'm gonna let you finish since you were in the middle of that, and then I'll go on these comments.
Yeah, I have no clue where it cut off. But controversy, we wouldn't have growth and evolution if we didn't step outside of the box, if we didn't do something that wasn't normal, and actually change things around. I know normal, that's my favorite. I hate the word normal. Everyone's like, oh yeah, everything's normal. And I'm like, no, everything is fucked up and weird and strange. And that's just how it is. And the one last thing that I want to really push in regards to responsibility, taking responsibility of your own healing, is the fact that you cannot control other people. You can't control what they do. You can't control what they say. You can't control how they react to things. And it is not your responsibility to control them. It is your responsibility to take care of you, control yourself, your own actions, your own reactions, and that is the only thing that you can do. So no matter what someone else is doing, don't allow, because this gives your power away and it creates limiting beliefs within yourself, that you then go, oh, well, I've been told all my life I can't do that. But it's not because those other people said it that has created the fact that you can't do it. The fact that you chose to believe what somebody else said and accepted it as a belief is the reason why you can't do it. It has nothing to do with other people and everything to do with the fact that so many people said it to you. You went, you know what? They're right. That is now something I can't do. And you created the limiting belief, which is why we always say, only you can break through those barriers and break down those limiting beliefs and create the life of your dreams and the life that you want. So remember, you are here to only control yourself, not everybody else.
Amen. And I'm glad you said that, but because people always go like, Ashley, why do you feel like you can say whatever you want and like that be okay? Say what I want. Well, yeah, why not? But
your world, your way.
A long time ago, I said because people are going to perceive whatever I want. You could be Mother Teresa and somebody's still going to call you a bitch. Okay, you're going to be Mother. And so I said, but I know going out into this world that my intention is never of ill will or to cause harm to people. So I can't control how people are going to perceive what comes out of my mouth, because I could say it in a tone where I think I'm being nice. And somebody go, why are you so hateful? So for anybody out there mirroring that, what Karen said, you are solely responsible for how you show up in the world. You cannot control the world. And I think we operate from the space of believing that if we operate this way, it's going to affect the situation this way. So really you're trying to control something that's far out of your control. So, and that is also like, that's a trauma response. If you are a child that is grown up in chaos, you will seek to control your external environment as an adult because you believe that now, I mean, and I could be a little off, but most of the time it's belief that now, because an adult, you have control over all these situations. And the reality is your programming will always come back up and dictate your external circumstances. So I want to just take some comments, then we're going to drive into shadow work. He says, when you just try to make the best out of situations here in Africa and keep in mind that at the end of the day, you are responsible for your own happiness. No matter what you go through, mental health is very important. Amen. And amen. Thank you, Derek, for joining in on the conversation. Phenomenal point there. Emily says,
so just a heads up, my phone might die. So if I disappear, that's probably
all right. Don't worry. You are more than welcome to come back on more. We're going to have to do another one on this. Emily says, loves all this. That this is such an important conversation, and it is. And Rashawn says, hello, ladies. Hello, Rashawn. I'm glad you're here. Rashawn was on my Woman of Color one. I was so happy to have one. All right.
She's awesome.
She is awesome, y'all. So now
can I just say one thing about just being uncomfortable? Just a quick thing. So, okay, very quickly. I very much believe that the fact that things are uncomfortable is the number one sign that they need to be spoken about more, because the only reason that something is uncomfortable is because it's not spoken enough about. Yeah. So just little tidbits, keep in mind. So I think that's important to not shy, although yes, uncomfortable is not comfortable, not familiar. It's not a familiar feeling, so it's uncomfortable. That's all it really is. So when we kind of like are able to dissect things into smaller, more we can kind of like wrap our heads around it easier. Sometimes it doesn't seem as overwhelming. So just remember that uncomfortable just means it's more foreign than it probably should be.
Amen. All right. So we are going to move on to our next topic. For time's sake, I'll give it about 20 minutes. I don't want to make this too long. I want everybody to make sure that they get to bed on time. I'm talking about myself primarily. All right, so we're going to talk about shadow work, and this is something that it took me a while to realize that that's actually what I do as a coach, and I think that the hang up for that was, I think when especially if you're someone who's extremely intentional about shadow work like myself, where it's like I'm just going to keep doing it, and whatever comes up, I'm just going to roll through it. You never really feel like you're at that point where you're like, oh, okay, you know what? I'm good enough to start working with people on this, because the reality is in shadow work, you're always just at one point of working through your stuff. And for me, it's always been like, I get to a level, I'm like, wow, it's good. Kind of things are like leveled out, I'm going about, and then bam, another thing comes up. It's like, God dang, I got to roll through this. And so I actually had a client mirror back to me that she was like, listen, I don't want to talk to this person, but all the love and the light out there is telling me that I got to be a good person and yada, yada, yada. And I'm like, no, man, fuck that. Listen, you don't want to, I said, do you need to talk to this person? And she said, no. I said, okay. I said, because here's the thing. I always tell people, I'm equal parts love and light, and fuck off. Straight up. Equal parts love, light, and get the fuck out of my face.
Do no harm, take no shit, baby. Yeah, do no harm, take no shit.
And it's not me being mean, but it's me understanding that that is my boundary. Like I need to be okay first. And what happens is I think we get caught up in the love and the light, and I have to be good to other people. And the reality is you have to be good to yourself first. Love and light to me is based upon you can give that which you can do for yourself. What you do for yourself is what you're able to give other people. So I was like, I understand it now. And so to me, when I talk about shadow work, for anybody's out there, it's just understanding the duality of yourself. Understanding, like Nikki and everybody else is here, we are equal parts dark and light. And when we negate the fact that our darkness is equally as powerful, if not sometimes more powerful than our light aspect, we attach shame and other negative vibrations to an entire piece of ourselves. And for anybody who's a parent out there, if you have never heard, and this is something I learned with child custody, when you talk ill about somebody, about your child's parent to them, they will actually internalize what you were saying about the parent as a reflection of who they are. So they will grow up, if you've ever heard, God, you're just so much like your father. And you will always, some part of you will always believe that there's this bad piece of you because you are so much like your father. And if your father was negatively talked about, you internalize that as you, that being you, yourself. So, so for me, shadow work is understanding all those dynamics and understanding the deeper, darker pieces of myself, because they aren't shameful. They are worthy of being out in the light just as much as the light is worthy of being there. And that by understanding all these pieces of myself, I therefore allow myself to become whole. And I can do what they call embodiment, which means I can embody my entire self as a whole person. So I would love to know your ladies' thoughts on the importance of shadow work in regards to healing unresolved trauma. And I'm going to leave this open to whomever would like to take the torch and get started with this.
Do it. I'll go first only because I have 5% left and I might get cut off. So it's like Russian roulette right now. It's like,
okay, we're going to go.
Okay. So shadow work, super duper important. Must do. No, honestly, y'all, it is important because that's how you navigate. Where do you start? So often, as a coach and even, in psychology, people are like, where do I start? I don't even know where to start. I don't even know how. It's like, start here. It's like here. And you explore from there. So shadow work is literally your opportunity to relearn yourself. And if something doesn't match, you at the present day, because again, we talked about how we absorb consciously and subconsciously. So there's so much of ourselves that we don't even realize, we don't even agree with necessarily. We're just used to it being the way it was, or we're used to it. This is how the family does it. This is how the church does it. This is how the community does it. But if you aren't even aware that you need to be aware, when will you then take the step back? It's up to you. And that's where that personal responsibility and personal accountability comes in, because y'all, no one is going to, nor should they, no should, for lack of a better word, nor should they beg you to be happy. It is up to you to find your happy. And again, this is coming from all the love in my heart, because I know that staying stuck in that struggle, y'all, it's engulfing. It's all encompassing. If you cannot by yourself, for yourself, know that you have the tools within you to overcome. And that tool is shadow work. That is the tool you use to find out who you are, why you are, where, what, how, all those good things. It really will give you the opportunity to see where you may need a little work, see where you didn't even realize. A trigger is literally just the feeling you have in response to a certain stimulus. So like Ashley was saying, it's what you attach. It's a memory that you attach. So the more emotion you give to a thought, that's what makes it prevalent in your mind. It's your feeding into it. But remember, you have the opportunity to feed it negatively or positively. Whichever one you feed more, that's the one that's going to prevail. So again, there's no right or wrong. It's healthy and unhealthy. You want to really, there's no one size fits all. You want to do what is best for you, what feels right. But I urge you, please do not shy away from the uncomfortable. Please don't shy away from what may not feel great, because everything that's worth it is outside your comfort zone, and you won't even know the possibilities until you try. The worst that can happen is you're already feeling sad. Well, guess what? That was going to sneak up on you whether you scheduled it or not. Better you have control and you schedule it and you take that power back, you take that control back, versus, oh, well, I'll just, okay, I'll just kind of sit here and wonder. Life is going to test you many, many times. Control what you are able to. So, pain is inevitable. Suffering is optional. So very, very, just a little key. It's a little key thing right there.
Amen. All right.
Yeah.
Who's next for this one?
So much good stuff, dude. I'm like taking notes for myself to reference later.
I know, I've got them too. I'm like, oh.
It's so good. It's so good. And it's always so like healing and empowering and also validating to just hear other people talk about it. So, like keep coming to these panels, everybody who's listening, like or involved, keep doing it. Okay, so I want to mention a few things. Also with the I need to be nice mindset. I would challenge any trauma survivor to like really analyze that feeling, because I guarantee you that we all are so fucking nice all the time because we're used to not making other people uncomfortable. We're used to bending over backwards. We're used to doing all these things. So like, don't internalize, or, it's easy to say don't internalize it, but like, you are nice. You are kind. You are all of these things already. And it's okay for you to have those strong boundaries of like, you can't hurt me anymore. So I would challenge anybody to look internally and do that internal work to, negate that thought or feeling. And also, I know how hard that is because, just like Nikki is saying, I also have a chronic illness. I was diagnosed with a chronic illness in August of 2019. So I have chronic fatigue syndrome, which I am very, very set on that, like, I'm going to cure it. Even if it's chronic illness, like that's where my mind is. Cause like, that's how I have to think. But I also want to say with the just internalization issues and like doing that shadow work so that you don't keep feeling this way about yourself. So again, a personal example would be my birth mother telling me that I'm like my birth father. So again, with what I just shared, like you're telling me that I am like somebody who you say, is a rapist. So like I could internalize that. I could take that pain body on myself. However, I'm healed enough to just say like, whoa, like, thank you for that pain. I don't accept it, but like, no, thank you. Right. So all of that's so important. And then I also I definitely struggle with a negative tape in my head. And I'm very good in situations where there is structure and there is control because I know my part. It's easy for me to go above and beyond and be the best of the best within that structure. Because there is control and that means there is safety. However, when it comes to me doing my own thing, like being an entrepreneur and running my own business, that's when that negative self-doubt, like that tape starts in my head. And so in addition to chronic fatigue, I also have post-traumatic stress syndrome, which is very fun. But one of the biggest things for me is naming the trauma. And I also am a copywriter. Again, I'm in marketing. Pain points are my thing. Messaging is my thing. So like language and vernacular to me is very, very important. So for me, learning about the trauma, doing the internal work, putting names to it so then I can identify it and then attack it. And also specifically relating to what you said, Ashley, about the control thing. I'm a person who loves to be in control, but in the way, in the way of just like when I'm putting myself in a new situation, I need to know a lot about it so that when I enter into it, I feel safe because there has been so much trauma. Let's see what else was there. Oh yeah. Get ready to be uncomfy. I don't know if you guys have seen, specifically relating to current events, this like very young girl who is like giving a speech to legislation, and just saying like, Karen behind me doesn't like to be uncomfy, and like you really need to be like comfortable being uncomfy. So my word now is uncomfy, and not only being comfortable with being uncomfy, but learning how to move through intensity with grace. Because when we start doing this work, and we really give it light, we really give it time, we really slow down, and give ourselves the space and the grace to do this internal work, it is not easy, and there is no way to tell what your journey is going to be like. And so you have to just take it as it comes. And most importantly for me, have a network of support, even if that's like 1 to 3 people in your life, that give you the grace and give you the space. And that's for me why it's so important to have those boundaries, to have those relationships, to have people in my life that are also doing this work, that also are empathetic, that also understand. Because without that, can be like you feel alone, right? And like for any trauma survivor, like none of us want to feel alone. Like we've been alone for long enough. Like we're not here for that anymore. We're here for support. We're here for community. We're here for each other. And so lastly, in doing this internal work, I'll use my mom as an example. So last week I came out to her as bisexual. And to add on to what Karen, you were saying, I grew up in a Christian cult. And so it was very homophobic and all those, patriarchal nice things like men are above women, all that stuff. We won't get into that today. I know Ashley's like giggling at me. I'm like, how do I say this quickly? But when I was talking to her, I was, talking to her about sexual abuse and domestic violence and sexuality, and all she really said to me, in this vein, that wasn't all she said, but was just that, I guess when I was younger, I just wasn't that wise. And so if a woman like that, right, with so much trauma and so much baggage that's still in a Christian cult, can have that openness, like it really gets me. Like that is like, that's it, right? Like we have to have the capacity for growth and the capacity to be uncomfy. Like without the capacity to be uncomfy and learn how to move through it with grace, like you're gonna be stuck in the place you always have been. You're gonna be stuck with that sadness. You're not going to feel happiness. And I would also say that people get comfortable in being sad. People get comfortable in their trauma. People get comfortable, like like for me, I could be like, well, I've got chronic fatigue and this is just me now. But I also want to make sure that we say, even though trauma obviously becomes such a large part of your life, that is not you. It's a part of you, but it's not you. And so one of the biggest things for me in doing this work, we talked about the trauma cycles, right? And for me, my trigger is not feeling heard. And so when I don't feel heard, there's an intense amount of like anger and rage that comes out and I give myself grace for that. But we're not able to move forward. And we're just not able to grow and be happy. Like the light at the end of the tunnel, like you might not even see it right now, but it's there. And like moving through the tunnel, that trauma, like I would just say it's a trauma tunnel. Like it is dark and it's hard and it's icky. And like there might be a rat or two, like we don't want to deal with, it's disgusting. But like there is a light at the end of the tunnel. And so when you step into that, happiness comes back, and it is possible and you can do it, but it is not easy. It's really, really fucking hard. And none of us on this panel could give anybody a blueprint of exactly what it would look like. It's completely individual, and you just have to understand that you're going to be uncomfortable. It's going to suck, and it's probably going to suck for other people that are really close to you in your life. So just if you don't have, create your own support system of people who love you unconditionally, absolutely unconditionally. So that's all.
All right. And I'm going to say one thing before we get to Karen, because I just really think this is phenomenal. I had a feeling this was going to go over, and I'm really excited, Karen, for you to kind of end us off here. But you talked about
I got some doozies.
your mom saying that I wish I'd been that wise. So I think also to add on that, sometimes you guys, a form of healing is understanding that while we may not understand something, it still has the right to be here. And I say that in response to people right now who are going, oh, because you don't agree with my belief, that means I'm going to berate you and just scream at you.
Yes.
And the reality is, you guys, that's trauma too.
Yes.
And I want to say this to anybody who's out there, if more of us understood that, even though it's something that makes us uncomfortable, that by allowing it to be here and be heard, we can start taking the uncomfort out of it, but we can allow it to have the room to start creating healing in the world. So sometimes healing is also understanding that while we may not understand it, we have enough grace to allow it to have its own space and be here. So Karen, I would love for you to finish us off with your thoughts on shadow work and why it's important in regards to unresolved trauma.
All right, so I'm going to touch on a lot of stuff that you guys have already said. As a card reader, you guys may have saw me get up. I got some cards. I had to do it. I'm going to tie this into some science for you, and I'm going to tie it into our current situation for you as well. So we're checking all your boxes, Ashley. So first off, I want to start out by saying, if you run into anybody who is spiritual and the only thing they are spouting is love and light, and they do not ever mention negativity or you just have to start thinking positive, that's all it takes, that's bullshit. Run in the other direction, please, please. And if you don't believe me, here is the scientific proof. If you have not heard of them, go look them up after this, because I will only talk about one of them. They are the Hermetic principles. They have been proven in science to be truth. And one of those Hermetic principles is the principle of duality, right? Duality, the balance in opposites. Without one, you cannot have the other. Without the sun, we would not have the moon. Daytime, nighttime, masculine, feminine, positive, negative, right? These words exist for a reason because they are pure opposites and dualities to each other, the polarities, if you will. So without shadow, we cannot have light, because that's the thing. If we've never experienced anything bad, how do we know what experiencing something good feels like? So just something scientific there for you guys to think about. One thing that Ashley said just there before she let me speak was about the religious aspect of it and feeling like, berating somebody because, they don't believe the same thing as you are. One thing I just want to remind everybody of is just because somebody has different beliefs than you does not mean in any way, shape, or form that yours are wrong, that there is less space for yours, or that you now can't believe what you believe. Right? We are all just trying to do what feels right for us to make it through this life and learn what it is that we have to learn, right? So I take up the exact amount of space I'm supposed to take up. It is up to me whether or not I fill that space out. I can choose to be smaller than what I am, but I will never, no matter what I say, do, or how I act, will I ever take up more space than what I have. I have a specific space. We are all part of one consciousness, and we all fit into that puzzle very, very nice and snug together as a united one. So I will not ever, no matter how loud I talk, no matter how much I communicate these things to other people, I will never take up more space than what I have. And so I will never encroach on your beliefs. I will never encroach into your space of what is right for you. I want to mention, because this is something that I find a lot of people go through, and I actually went through this with my miscarriage. So my husband is in the military. So we move every so often. When we first got together and we were pregnant, we were living in Newfoundland. And then we spent a little over like a year and 2 months or something in Newfoundland after the miscarriage. And so we both thought, yay, we're getting posted to Kingston. It's going to be different. We're going to, it's going to be a fresh start because we're not going to be around in the space and in the province where everything happened. So everything's going to start getting better. No, that's not how that happens, because what happens is because we carry that trauma within, we carried that trauma with us. So yes, we weren't in the same apartment we were in when it happened. We weren't in the same province. We weren't close to the same hospital where everything went down. But all of that internal anger, frustration, trauma, sadness, depression, we carried that with us. So when we got here to Kingston, surprise, surprise, not much changed until we worked on it, because we brought everything with us. The surroundings were different, but everything internally was the same. So please don't think that moving somewhere new is going to make everything better, because you're still going to carry that trauma within. What else do I have right here? I want to let you guys know that whatever your reaction is to trauma, it is a normal. It's a normal reaction to an abnormal situation. Do not let anybody else tell you that the way you are reacting and dealing with trauma is wrong, that that's not how you do it. Because like we've been saying all night, one size does not fit all, right? I've had a miscarriage. One of my friends that had a miscarriage, she dealt with it differently than I did. I dealt with it differently than the next 10 people that are going to do it. Because although the situation is the same, the person dealing with it is different, which is why the reaction is going to be different. The amount of anger, depression, and all of this stuff is going to be different. So do not ever let somebody tell you that you are doing it wrong, because you're not. What else do I got? Oh yeah, sit and listen. This is how we tie it into COVID. So everyone's like, what is COVID trying to teach us? Because in the spiritual world, we're all like, what is the lesson that the world is trying to tell us here, right? So all of these people, everybody has been forced to stay home, sit, do nothing. And we are a society of busy, busy, busy. I have to do this so I can get on to the next thing. I have to keep going. I have to have something that I'm consistently doing. And one thing that that does for us is it allows us to focus on other things, so we don't have to focus on the inside. We don't have to focus on the trauma. So one thing that I believe COVID has tried to teach us is that we need to slow down. We need to sit. We need to stop. We need to listen. We need to just be, and be okay with just being, because that's how we're going to work through these things. That's how we're going to be able to hear what is going on. If you want an exercise in where to start with your trauma, because you're like, so much stuff has happened to me, I don't know where to begin. Sit and listen. Sit and ask the question, where do I begin? And then listen. You will hear or you will feel drawn to a specific trauma in your life, and write that down. Because another thing that we forget is that the mind up here, the brain, the one that we have labeled the brain, is not the only brain we have. We have this brain, we have our heart brain, and we have our intuitive brain, our intuition. And all three of those need to work together, right? So it is not just about thinking through things. It's about feeling through things. It's about understanding that sometimes things are just not going to fucking make sense. And that's okay, right? So you need to sit, ask the question, and then listen for what comes up. And then journal it, write it out. Journal everything out, write down everything you can. And when you're journaling, don't worry about grammar, just write. Nobody cares what it looks like. It's just for you. It doesn't matter. The point is to get everything out that you can. Yeah, see, there you go. And then I will finish with the cards that I didn't technically draw them. My guides just went, go pick out these cards. And I went, okay, I'll do it. So the first one is from a deck called The Universe Has Your Back by Gabby Bernstein. You're probably not going to be able to see it because the lighting is very horrible as it is getting dark here. But it says true healing occurs when I give myself permission to feel whatever feelings live below the triggers. And that's about feeling into it. When you get triggered and something upsets you, sit and be like, why is that upsetting me? What feelings is that bringing up within me right now? And why are those feelings coming up? Because then you're going to start to understand why you got triggered. And then you're going to know this is what I need to work on. And then the other one is from my Healing Mantras deck, which is my newest deck, and I love it so, so much. It is Befriending Pain. And I will reiterate this, like I say every time I pull this card, this is not about going and punching a wall and being like, oh, Pain, I love you, you're my friend. That's not what this is about. This is about the discomfort, okay? So the mantra on the back is, when discomfort becomes a friend, my most limiting beliefs are healed. So when discomfort becomes my friend, my most limiting beliefs are healed. I love that mantra. Please write it down. If you need to, go back and rewatch the video, find it at an hour and 30 minutes and pause it and keep playing it until you have it written down. It is so important to understand that when you're in discomfort, you are discomfort with that pain because it is something you need to work through. It is showing you a fear. It is showing you trauma. It is showing you what you need to work through. That's why we have it. That's why it happens. So I'm just going to say that again for you guys. When discomfort becomes a friend, my most limiting beliefs are healed. And that is it for me on this topic.
That was awesome, man. Oh, Sarah, go ahead.
Since we've mentioned COVID, I want to make sure that I say something for Black Lives Matter, and not for, because that's not my place. I just want to make sure that we do mention that on full display across the entire world right now, like, trauma language is on full display. And our job is to shut up and listen and learn. And a reminder not to tone police anyone, because that's not anyone's right. Anytime somebody is expressing trauma, you let them express the way that they feel. Like, and let me do it right now. If I'm mad and I want to express how mad I am, you need to listen. And if I want to say, like, hey, I'm really, really, really hurt, and like what you're doing is really harmful, you also need to listen. Like, no matter how it's being delivered, no matter if it's in a protest that becomes peaceful or not, that's not your place, nor your right, nor your job to tone police when people are just sharing their experiences. Your only job is to listen. So that's all I have to say about that.
Amen to that. I'm really happy you put that, because that's like a huge thing to me. It's like, how can we tell people to talk about their pain and then go, well, but fit it into this box, okay? Like, don't do like, dude, no, like,
you can't. That's not right. That's not right.
It bothers me when people go, well, are you sure that happened? I want to go, well, were you fucking there?
You're like, yeah, I'm fucking sure it happened.
Yeah.
I'm confused because I didn't hear you in the story. Were you there? I don't understand. So Nikki said, sorry, she couldn't be, her phone died. It's all good, Nikki. She says she had to learn her boundaries and recognize that they were the best for me. It then stopped the unwanted behavior that was coming towards me. But again, until we, like Karen said, until we go through this shit, we don't understand what boundaries actually look like in our life, right? So until we go through shitty relationships, we don't understand that this is actually what a good relationship looks like to us. So this one was interesting, and I think this will be a really cool panel, actually. She said, we need to hear how people with PTSD feel. Many people do not understand what you mean.
Yeah.
So like a few different and then Nikki, she says, sorry, her phone died, and then she agreed, you can't see the light in the light, only through darkness. And then she put a nice call to action for more assistance with shadow work. Feel free to contact anyone on here. Yeah, so for anybody who wants to know, in cases from the shit pile, we grow great sunflowers. I love it. So for anyone who is interested and then Kay, reach out to Karen. But Karen, if you go to my watch party, Kay would love the names of those cards again, please. So
Absolutely.
So Kay Hamilton. But yeah, you guys, this has been a really informative panel. It's getting late, so I don't want to keep anyone on here any longer. You know, you guys, we touched on so much, and I feel like there's definitely going to be more panels that come from this. But really, another reason why I love having these conversations is I had this mirrored to me, and I said this to something. I love how deep the panels continuously get. And another aspect that we don't talk about, and I think it's one of the most important ones, is when you can go deep within yourself, when you can do the work within yourself, you can therefore turn around and start helping other people do the work. Because the reality of it is you can't take people to a depth or to a place that you yourself have not ventured to. You cannot sit here and tell someone, listen, this is the work you need to do, when you have no idea what that work actually looks like. Can you point them in the direction? Yeah, but can you take them on the journey? No. So the reason these panels are so deep is, and it's also because you ladies are obviously amazing, but it's also a direct reflection of the work I've chosen to do so that I can show up in the space to hold space to have these conversations. Because if I hadn't done the work, this shit might make me uncomfortable. When I was 19, the last thing I wanted to talk about was rape and other stuff. And that's because I had gone through it, but not healed through it. Right. So that would make me uncomfortable. Like, cause now I have to think about shit that I've gone through.
Yep.
So when we give ourselves the ability to heal and work through our own trauma, we therefore begin the process of holding space for other people, as well as allowing other people to understand that it is okay for them to heal through their own trauma as well. Because if they see you and go, my God, well, they survived, they didn't die by doing this work.
Yeah.
They're going to go, oh, you know what? Maybe I can go through it too. And again, you can't take people where you yourself haven't gone. That's why when I got into this, I thought I was going to be a manifestation coach, never having manifested a day in my life. Right?
One thing I want to say with that, Ashley, just about like you can't take people where you haven't been, is don't let not being at what you perceive as the end of your journey stop you from helping. We need more light workers in the world. We need more people helping people through this stuff. But the thing to remember is you only have to stay one chapter ahead, one step ahead of somebody else to help them through the step that you've already been through. So don't hold yourself back thinking, oh, I have to get to the end of the road before I can start helping anybody. No, you just have to be one step ahead of them and know, hey, you're going through this. I just went through that. Let me help you with it. So don't hold yourself back thinking you need to be at the end before you can help somebody at the beginning.
I would just say proceed with caution and be very conscious of how you're helping and what you're saying. Because again, words mean a lot. And I hate, I'm sure you guys were taught the same thing. Sticks and stones may break my bones, but words may never hurt me. That's bullshit. That's absolutely bullshit. That is not true. So as long as we proceed in spaces, even maybe that we haven't been, like with empathy and love and like growth mindset, like it will be fine. Everything will be okay. And if you do hear from somebody, hey, what you said hurt me, or like I feel like it's harmful, stop, listen, and learn, and then proceed. Like always be open, always heart center open, always. Yeah.
All right. Well, ladies, thank you so much. Nikki, I know you're out there watching.
We love you.
We love you.
Thank you so much. We are going to keep coming back to these topics. If anybody's paying attention, I have up through August all the panels laid out. So if you're interested on being on one, please reach out to me. For anybody who's interested in doing this work, I think you can talk to any of the women here, about any of this. Specifically, I'm getting ready to open up a group that is going to be specifically about shadow work and sovereignty and understanding what that means and what that power really is. So for anybody who's interested in that, please, please, please put connection in the comments or reach out to me. We will set a conversation up and I'll tell you how we can move forward in that relationship. But again, yeah, feel free to please connect with any of the ladies that have been on this show. They all are amazing in their own right, and they do phenomenal work in all different areas. So please feel free to reach out to them. In fact, ladies, if you want to tell everybody where you can be reached before we get off of here, that way if they want to connect with you, because I'm going to have to go back since I had to create a new broadcast. And but if you guys want to tell them how to get a hold of you, and then we're going to end this since we're getting a little late on the hour.
Absolutely. You guys can reach out to me through my business page on Facebook, Karen Lowe Inspirations. Also on Instagram at karen.low.inspirations, and on YouTube, Karen Lowe Inspirations as well. If Ashley doesn't mind, I will drop it's called Linktree, and basically it is one link that you can click, and then it gives you a whole bunch of other links on where you can connect with me, and how to book readings, how to get my book that I've written on spirituality for beginners, and all of this stuff. So I will drop that in the comments so that you guys can just click it and see where you go from there.
Amen. All right. And Sarah, you want to let everybody know?
Yeah, and congrats on having written a book. That's incredible.
Thank you.
So I'll just keep it simple with Instagram. My personal Instagram, where I talk about a lot of this stuff, is just at Sarah Gerlaxon. And then my business Instagram, where I help small business owners and entrepreneurs build their brands and their businesses, is at Modern Co Marketing. That's it.
Awesome. And I'm just writing notes over here. I'm like, you girls rock from the shit pile. I'm just keep reading from the shit pile. We grow.
Brilliant.
And again, I'm just going to repeat this. So for anybody who's interested in doing shadow work and like really understanding the root of their fruit, as I call it, like why are you producing what you're producing in your life? I am doing one-to-one and group shadow work. So it's going to be really focusing on the deep dive and understanding yourself at your most base and core level. So for anybody who's interested in that, because you're going, God, if I have to just fucking do this shit again, if I have to keep living in these cycles, dealing with the shit that I'm dealing with, I'm going to go fucking nuts. I have a pin there. Karen especially can testify to the fact that I've been to that particular vista many times. So I'd like to think that by now I have a pretty good idea of what I'm doing. So for any person who's interested in that, please feel free to reach out and connect with me, and we can talk about working together and what that will look like for you. But otherwise, you guys, thank everybody for being here. For anybody who stayed later, listen to this. Listen, for anybody who's out there saying, I don't know, it's kind of late. It is 4 a.m. in the morning. We're that
wow.
All the way from Are you kidding?
This man is in Africa. All right. 4 a.m. in the morning. He's a man on top of it, okay? So I don't
Thanks for staying, Derek. That's amazing.
Yeah. This thing, okay? But and I have to be up at 3 o'clock in the morning, so that says a lot. So anyways, you guys, thank you ladies for being on here. This was friggin' awesome.
Thank you so much.
I'm so excited to have more panels like this and to have these conversations. Like I've told Karen, I feel like I've been waiting a really long time to have these conversations. And for anybody, I'm going to end this. For anybody who's out there going, you know, I wish, and it's based on a quote I saw. It's like for anybody out there who's wishing that these conversations were being had or this was being done, if you're getting that nudge, like, God, I wish, you are probably that person that is meant to bring that to life. Because the reason it started was because I said, I wish we were having conversations about this, and I don't see anybody doing it. And so I just said, well, you know what? Maybe I'll do it. And so
we have been waiting for.
Yes, exactly. So if you're getting the nudge, please do it, because the only way we're going to continue to break boundaries and break down the stigmas and the paradigms is to start questioning it and start having conversations. Even if we don't all agree, we can have a conversation. And I firmly believe that we can do that. So thank you guys so much. For anybody who watches this, please come back Thursday, 7:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time for a really awesome story. We're going to have another amazing person on. I'm really excited. And thank you, ladies, again for being here. And I will see you guys. We'll have another awesome panel. We're doing another Women of Color panel. I'm really excited. Next Tuesday. So that's going to be a lot of fun. So for any ladies who would like to be on that one, I have open spots available. And then following that, we're going to do, I think it's like the 4th or 5th panel, a domestic violence series. Like I'm actually literally giving it its own series, and this might be one as well. So we're going to have another episode in our domestic violence series, which I can't even tell you how many episodes that's probably going to bring in, but a lot. So again, we're going to keep talking about this, like you guys said, until the uncomfortable things are no longer uncomfortable and it's not taboo to talk about it anymore.
Yes.
So hitting this nail on the head until that sucker goes in and it's not sticking. All right. So you guys, if you guys catch us on the replay, #replay for anybody out there who finds value in this, please feel free to share it. And then please, you guys, connect with all these ladies. Nikki put her stuff in the watch party, and ladies, you are more than welcome to go back, put your stuff into this broadcast. And I'll see you guys on Thursday, 7:30 p.m. Bye, y'all. I'm like, am I hitting the right button?